Good morning, and welcome to this week's edition of Speaking of Gas. This is brought to you by the GasWellGuru, and it's a weekly look at what matters to you, the owners of oil and gas rights in Pennsylvania. The GasWellGuru is always advocating for and educating the landowner. This webcast is recorded and can be viewed on my YouTube channel, easy to find by just searching Jackie Root. So this week, I am back in Pennsylvania. I was in warm, somewhat dry Phoenix last week, and I'm back in the rainy, cool Northeast. So this week, we're going to talk about an exciting topic, and that is current legislation that has the potential to affect your oil and gas rights. There are currently three bills that I'm going to focus on: SB 654, Senate Bill 654, Senate Bill 581, and House Bill 170. And I'm going to look at this through the actual website and tell you a little bit about the bills. But the other thing that it's going to focus on is what's available to you as a citizen of Pennsylvania and a voter as far as knowing what's happening with legislation. You may not be interested in that at all, but I firmly believe that you need to understand the process a little bit in order to affect legislation, or try to affect legislation that has an impact on you, whatever the interests are, and have some real expectations about what's possible. I know that, over 5,000 bills get introduced, and just a very teeny tiny percentage of those ever see the light of day or passage. So let's dive right into this. And I'm going to switch over to the Pennsylvania General Assembly website. And so this is going to be a live interactive session today. And this is the general page. This will get you both to the House and Senate. You can see tabs across the top. If you want to go to the Senate's page specifically, or the House, you can find all kinds of information about your representatives. If you don't know who your representatives are, there's a place to find my legislator here, and you can easily find those. And so we're going to talk about three bills, and I'm going to start with Senate Bill 654. So if you want to find a bill, you can easily find a bill by searching the number, if you know it, or you can search a term. And this bill is about the depletion allowance. So actually, if we put that in, we'll find it. But I know that it's SB 654, and type that in. And here is the page specifically for that bill. Now, if you're receiving royalties in Pennsylvania, this bill will definitely impact you, and in a positive way if it's passed. I'm involved in Pennsylvania Oil and Gas Landowner Alliance, and we have a lobbyist in Harrisburg who's there to advise us, monitor bills, and advocate on our behalf for passage of bills that are helpful to us, and to monitor for bills that have the potential to negatively affect us. And I'm going to talk about one of those in a minute. And, bills, industry can be behind a lot of bills, and sometimes those bills represent their interest, but we have to make sure that they're not harmful to ours, or try to. So this one was actually introduced for on behalf of royalty owners, and it was introduced by Senator Bartolotta. There is a companion bill, or there was in the House, that hasn't seen movement, introduced by Representative Dunbar. But currently, this is the one that's seeing some activity. So you can see the prime sponsor of the bill and the last action on it sent to appropriations in December, and the memorandum that was filed that gives you the intent of the bill. They use this when they want to get sponsors and have people sign on with it. And so then you go on down here and you can see that the bill was introduced with printer number 698, and then it was amended or changed. And so this is the most current printer number. That's always important. So if we click on the Adobe version of this bill, this will bring up the actual bill. You can see it was introduced by Senator Bartolotta and co-sponsored by Senator Yaw, Hutchison, pronunciation, Pennycuick, Rothman, Baker, Dush, Vogel, and Schwank. And I believe Judy Schwank is a Democrat. The rest are all Republicans. And so since the Senate is controlled by the Republicans, a very Republican bill has a much better chance of making it through. So ultimately, I'm not going to go through the whole bill, but this bill would allow you to deduct the depletion allowance just as you're allowed the percentage depletion allowance as you are allowed on the federal return. So if you are probably the average royalty owner in Pennsylvania and deducting the percentage depletion on federal, if this passed, you would be able to deduct it on Pennsylvania as well. And they did amend it to prevent large entities from deducting this beyond their original basis in the property. So that is one change that was made to this bill. So going back to, let's see, we'll close this. And going back here and looking at the path this bill has taken, the way to find that out is to look at the history. And in the history of the bill, and they read from the top to the bottom, it was introduced and then referred to the Finance Committee May 2nd of last year, first consideration June 7th, second June 9th, 19th, actually re-referred to appropriations for a further look, came out of appropriations, re-reported in September, and it's gone through some more committees and re-referred because it was amended to appropriations December 13th. So it's hanging out there, has some potential. It's certainly got some attention, some movement. A lot of bills don't even see this kind of movement. As you're tracking the history and you want to see what happens, now this bill had votes in committee, so you can look at a particular committee. Here's appropriations. If you click on the vote and go to that, it will show you everyone on that committee and how they voted. Had 2 nays and the rest yays, and passed easily out of appropriations for that particular vote. It will also show any votes. So there was yays 102, nays on one consideration in the House, passed by 1 vote. And of course, it has to have 3 considerations to actually be passed. So, you know, that's a little tutorial on how you get around. And there was something to look at on this bill because it has seen some activity in this process. So there we go. We have a bill that we have definitely been supporting. Our lobbyist has been working on to try to get this to move through. It does have support of some in leadership in the Senate. And then in the House, that's where they're looking at some further restrictions to make sure that it's not doesn't go further than it's intended to in its deduction for royalty owners of all sizes. So now let's go back and we're going to look up another bill, and that would be, because this is the most current, this just came out, that's why that's my topic today, Senate Bill 581. And Senate Bill 581 is one of those bills that has some potential for harm to your oil and gas rights and the right to develop those. Senate Bill 581 is very similar to, but a little different than House Bill 170 that was introduced last year. These bills are regarding setbacks for drilling, increased setbacks. Industry has been extremely concerned about this, and we have been as well. The Marcellus Shale Coalition put out some maps that talked about what could actually happen if you weren't allowed to drill in these setback areas. And with very large setbacks, it has the potential to, and this is one word that's used, sterilize large areas of the state for drilling, prevent you from getting permits. So maybe you have a pad on your property they want to further develop. This could make it difficult to get new permits. And also for new drilling. And I'll talk about some points in the bill and what that might mean. If you go onto the Marcellus Shale Coalition site, they actually show a map of the potential for sterilizing the state for drilling, stranding gas, stranding your oil and gas assets. So let's look at the bill that was introduced here. I mentioned printer number. It's the first one out of the chute. This is the actual bill. And the sponsors of it are all Democrats in a Republican-controlled Senate. So this bill would have to be very palatable to the industry and to the Republican senators to gain any traction. And the other bill is still has not been voted out of the House bill, has not been voted out of the Environmental Committee yet. There was a hearing, there was a lot of testimony about it, and the chairman of the committee, Representative Greg Vitale, said, was there room for compromise? And the industry people that were speaking on behalf of the industry said that yes, they would be interested in working on it going forward. But we'll see what that means. But this is Senate Bill 581 has currently been referred to the Environmental Committee. But let's go through this and give you a sense of what this might really mean to you. Let's see. Yes, you're still on this tab. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit because I don't know how well you can see it. And the zoom is in a different place every time I pull up a PDF. Okay, so Senate Bill 581 says it's amending Title 58 of the Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes and Development, further providing for well location restrictions. And so if you'll notice, there's some things highlighted. Those are the current regulations, and the underlined text, and you can't hold me to all this, but as best I can tell, that's where we're at, that the underlined words and numbers are what's proposed in this bill. That would be a change. So this says wells may not be drilled within 200 feet, or in the case of an unconventional well, 500 feet. So this says that a conventional well, currently law says if you're drilling a conventional shallow well, a well that's not going to be fracked, they can drill that within 200 feet of, and it goes on to say, building water or water well. And in the case of an unconventional well, putting a pad in, that cannot be drilled within 500 feet. They want to increase that to 2,500 feet, measured horizontally from the vertical wellbore to a building or water well existing when the copy of the plat is mailed as required, without written consent of the owner of the building or water well. Now, if you had, if everybody's leased within that area, it's probably not a big deal. However, 2,500 feet is a long distance. And when you start drawing 2,500 foot circles around the wellbore, you have the potential for a lot of area to be excluded if somebody were to object and they were not to allow it. And then it goes on to say unconventional wells may not be drilled within 1,000 feet to any existing water wells, surface water intake, reservoir, or other water supply extraction point used by a water purveyor without written consent, or within 5,000 feet of a reservoir. So they want to increase the reservoir distance to 5,000 feet. And then it says if consent is not obtained and the distance restriction would deprive the owner of oil and gas rights of the right to produce the oil or gas underlying the tract, the well operator shall be granted a variance from the distance restriction upon submission of a plan identifying additional measures. Now, it goes on to say some other things, but as I follow this, and this is my opinion, they certainly sense the era of Dimick and all the issues that happened there. There were water table casing procedures that failed and allowed some migration into water wells of methane, and it's been an ongoing fight recently. They are allowing subsurface drilling under that 9 square mile moratorium area. But for all wells drilled, they have increased the regulations and enforcement, I believe, of those procedures. And so, whether this is actually necessary is another thing for me. And I'm all for regulations that make this safe as possible for everyone in this industrial process. But we definitely don't want to go overboard. And so we'll see where this bill goes. It may not find its way out of the Republican-led committee. We'll see at this point. So let's see. Okay. And then there are some further, let's see, no well may be drilled within 5,000 feet of a school or hospital on or after the effective date of this paragraph. And there are provisions in this to waive the distance restrictions if there's a plan in place identifying additional measures, et cetera. So we'll see where this goes. Hopefully this was helpful in two ways. One is that you can see, here we go. Well, there we go. Okay. That you can see what is currently in the pipeline in the, so to speak, in the legislature that might affect you, how you can follow that. Of course, another way to follow that is to become a member of the Pennsylvania Oil and Gas Landowner Alliance. And we have a lobbyist in Harrisburg. We have a legislative committee that dictates our initiatives, what we support, what we follow, take action on. And then, of course, having an advisor in Harrisburg allows us to have a seat at the table there. It allows us to know what things are important to follow. You know, if we go back to this page about that shows, let's see, let's just go back to the General Assembly site and let's type in oil and gas. And let's see, there's 75 bills out there that have oil and gas in it. Now, what we'll say as an organization, and what I would say is that we want to pay attention to anything that says oil and gas in it, but then we'll look at it, and if our advisor, knowing the process, says this bill doesn't have a prayer of moving anywhere, then we're definitely not going to devote our time, energy, and resources in that, paying attention to that bill. Now, they subscribe to services that allow them to know if immediately, if a bill comes up with any of these terms that we might be concerned about royalty. There's 14 bills. Now, they may not all do oil and gas, but if they come up, they'll get an alert and they'll take a look at it. They'll let us know, is this something you're concerned about? Then we need to pay attention and review it with our committee. Some royalty bills have to do with royalties from other things like books. There's a lot of different kinds of royalties, and they don't all have to do with oil and gas. So that's where having the lobbyist is extremely important. So as an owner of oil and gas in Pennsylvania, being a member of POGLA not only provides that, but you know, we also provide a almost weekly newsletter. I was on vacation last week, so we did miss one or two there. We'll have a newsletter this week, and our newsletter tells what's going on with us, and then also some news items from around the state and nation, and then we have the Members Called to Say site, where people send us interesting reports that they might see on wells, et cetera, and we share that information. So that kind of wraps up, let's see. I believe that is everything that I wanted to say about that. I hope that was helpful in seeing a little bit about our legislative site and what's available. Maybe take a look at that and how to get around it and build your expectations. You know, understanding the legislative process is hard. Just when you think you have it figured out, there's another monkey wrench thrown in, something you didn't know, and you have to learn about that new twist and turn in the process. I've been working on things like this since about 2010. Prior to that, I'd maybe been on a tour of the Capitol and viewed our beautiful Capitol building. But then with the oil and gas and our minimum royalty bills, et cetera, I became very involved and learned much more about the process. I'm certainly not, I don't know it all. And I know probably enough to be dangerous when I'm down there, but it is important, whatever you're dealing with, to have expectations about how that system works. And through our organization, you can learn more about that. So that's all I'll say. We are following those bills, and we'll watch them all through the process. If we need to assist industry in voicing opinions against or the setback bills, or support of something they think is an alternative, whatever, that's a place where we would support industry in getting to the right outcome there. And then on the depletion allowance bill, we'll certainly be working hard to make that a reality for you, the owner of oil and gas rights in Pennsylvania. So I'll check the questions. I'm not seeing any flags that we've got any at this point, because you do have the ability to ask questions and answers, or ask questions if you look in that little box all the way down on the far right that has a triangle, a square, and a circle. You can type a question in there. And if nothing comes up before I sign off, thank you for joining me today. The same link will work each Thursday at 9 a.m. And again, all the previous webcasts are available to view on YouTube. So thank you for joining me.